Ladies and gentlemen, there is a vast terrain within us, a quiet continent veiled from the eyes of the world. In an age where oversharing is celebrated as authenticity, I invite you to consider a different kind of wisdom, the sacredness of keeping certain things unspoken. Today, I offer you 5 things to never share, not out of fear, but out of reverence for the mystery of the self. Certainly, here is a more expanded version of the Your Wounds Before They Heal section, written in a tone inspired by Jung's introspective and symbolic style. There are pains we carry that live deeper than the skin, quiet tremors that echo through the soul. They are not accidents of emotion, but sacred signals that something within us has been disturbed, broken, or torn apart in service of some hidden transformation. These wounds, though often invisible, shape the contours of our inner life. And yet, in a world that demands constant revelation and outward expression, there is a dangerous temptation to expose these wounds before they have known the touch of healing. To share a wound prematurely is to pull it out of the darkness where it still speaks a language we have not yet learned. It is to subject it to the glare of public scrutiny, where it may be misunderstood, diminished, or even dismissed. In doing so, we risk having others interpret a story that is still being written within us. And when that story is interpreted too soon, by others or even by ourselves, we may lose the opportunity to let it teach us what it came to teach. Pain, when held in silence and reflection, does not fester, it gestates. It begins to speak not only of what was lost, but of what is longing to be found. But this process demands solitude, time, and a kind of inner honesty that is rarely comfortable. A wound held close, acknowledged with reverence rather than rushed to be explained, can reveal a deeper pattern, a myth in which we are both the protagonist and the observer. When we offer our unhealed wounds to others, we often do so hoping for validation, for comfort, for answers. But no external voice can fully mirror the inner landscape of your suffering. And when the wrong hands hold our pain, those who have not yet earned the right to witness it, it can be twisted into something it is not, further entrenching our confusion or shame. Let your wounds speak to you first. Sit with them in the quiet hours. Ask them what they carry, what they want you to see. Let them mature from raw pain into meaningful insight. Only then, when they are no longer cries for help but expressions of wisdom, will you know when, and to whom, they can be shared. And often you'll find the sharing itself becomes less important than the transformation that took place in silence. For what we hide in the darkness is not always weakness. Sometimes it is gestation. Sometimes it is strength waiting to take shape. Certainly, here is an expanded version of your deepest dreams, written in a rich, introspective tone inspired by Jung's archetypal and symbolic lens. Without using a heading, there are dreams that arise not from the mind, but from the depths, from that ancient, unseen place within us where the soul speaks in symbols, images, and quiet yearnings. These are not the fleeting desires shaped by envy or comparison. They are not born from the noise of the world, but from the silence beneath it. They emerge slowly, like moonlight touching a still lake, and when they do, they carry with them a mysterious clarity, an inner knowing that does not need explanation. To possess such a dream is to hold something sacred. And yet, in the early stages of this birth, the dream is soft, unformed, vulnerable, like a flame in a storm, easily extinguished by careless winds. When we speak too soon of these dreams, before they've found their roots, we risk subjecting them to the distortion of others' projections, fears, and expectations. We offer them to minds that may not understand them, to voices that may reshape them with advice, doubt, or even ridicule. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the dream begins to change, not by natural growth, but by premature exposure. Its shape begins to bend under the weight of opinions, and in our attempt to share something beautiful, we watch it slip away. There is a time for revealing, just as there is a time for concealing. Every dream must be protected in its infancy, like a seed that cannot yet face the elements. The soil in which it must first grow is the soul, your own willingness to nurture what is not yet visible. This is a form of intimacy with oneself, a conversation that no one else can overhear. And in that space of inner fidelity, the dream begins to take on its true form. not a fantasy, not a wish, but a calling. Many never realize their deepest dreams, not because they lack the talent or the opportunity, but because they reveal them too soon. In the presence of doubt, others or their own, the dream grew confused. It became a performance, an idea to be marketed, or a goal to be justified. It ceased to be a source of inner direction and became something else, something measured, judged, categorized. But a dream is not a product. It is not something you owe to the world. It is a whisper from the unseen, calling you toward a life that is more aligned, more authentic, more whole. And until that life begins to take form, through action, struggle, and solitude, it is not meant for the ears of the many. When the time is right, your life itself will speak the dream. It will not require announcement. It will not need explanation. Hold your dream in silence, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Protect it from the noise of the unready world. Let it mature in the darkness, like a pearl in the shell of your being. And when it finally rises to the surface, shaped by both mystery and devotion, it will not ask to be shared. It will shine, certainly. Here is a longer, deeper exploration of your inner shadow. In a reflective and archetypal tone inspired by Jungian psychology, without a heading, there is a part of us that remains hidden, not because it is trivial, but because it is too potent to be easily seen. It dwells in the background, watching, waiting, shaping our behaviors in ways we seldom understand. This is the shadow, not the evil within us, but the unacknowledged. It is composed of the things we were told not to be, the traits we disowned to survive, the truths too uncomfortable for polite conversation. And while it is out of sight, it is never out of effect. It moves beneath our choices, our judgments, our relationship, silently pulling strings behind the mask of our conscious identity. To know your shadow is to begin the long and sobering work of self-integration. It requires not confession, but confrontation, not a spotlight, but a lantern carried through the corridors of the self. The shadow does not vanish when named, it transforms when understood. And this understanding cannot be rushed, nor offered to just anyone. For to reveal the contents of the shadow to another, especially too soon, is not vulnerability, but recklessness. The shadow is made of contradiction. In it lives our anger, our envy, our capacity for cruelty, but also our repressed vitality, our creativity, our sensuality, our forgotten instincts. When we share it without discernment, we risk being misunderstood by those who have not dared to meet their own. They may recoil, moralize, diminish, and in doing so, they mirror the very forces that caused us to repress those parts in the first place. Worse still, they may exploit what we have laid bare, using our honesty as leverage or ammunition. There is a modern hunger to be real, to tell all, to unearth the depths in the public square as proof of authenticity. But the raw truth of the psyche is not a currency. It is not meant for casual consumption. The shadow is not a story to be told. It is a force to be metabolized. It must be engaged in solitude, in silence, in dialogue with the self. Only then can it begin to transform from a threat into an ally. To share your shadow is to entrust someone with your chaos. Not everyone has the hands to hold it, and more importantly, not everyone should. The work begins not in speaking of it, but in sitting with it, observing when it surfaces, noticing what triggers it, asking what it wants, what it fears, what it remembers. This is inner alchemy, not spectacle. And like all sacred work, it demands protection. There will come a time, perhaps, when pieces of the shadow can be shared, but this moment is earned, not seized. It arrives only after you have come to recognize that your darkness is not an enemy, but a wounded part of the whole. When you can speak of it without shame or pride, when it no longer controls your actions from behind the veil, when it has taught you instead of ruled you, only then is it ready to be spoken, and only to those who will not flinch. Until that time, let the shadow remain where it belongs, in the workshop of the soul, where the hidden becomes known, and the known becomes whole, certainly. Here is an expanded reflection on your sacred symbols, written in the same inward, symbolic, and archetypal tone, Without using a heading, there are images, impressions, and signs that arise within us, not summoned by thought, but gifted by something older and deeper than logic. These are our sacred symbols, the inner figures, places, dreams, and fragments of language that carry more meaning than the words themselves can hold. They arrive like whispers from beneath the surface, from a source we cannot name but somehow recognize. They stir something ancient in us, something true. And yet, when we attempt to speak of them, to explain them plainly, they slip through the net of language like water through fingers. To carry a sacred symbol is to hold something that speaks in the language of the soul. It might be an animal that visits in dreams, a recurring number, a place that exists only in the imagination, a piece of music that unlocks a forgotten part of yourself, or an image that haunts you, not in fear, but in insistence. These are not decorations of the mind, they are psychic messengers. Each one carries a task, a warning, a purpose, or a path. They are guideposts, not to the world outside, but to the hidden terrain within. But these symbols are not meant to be exposed, not at first, not to many. When revealed too early, they are often misunderstood, reduced, or dismissed. Someone else might label them with meanings that belong to their framework, their faith, their fear. In that translation, the living energy of the symbol dies. It becomes abstract instead of alive, conceptual instead of experiential. The danger is not just that others will fail to understand, but that you may begin to doubt what was once self-evident in the marrow of your being. Symbols are not logical, they are felt. They live in the tension between opposites. They bridge the conscious and unconscious worlds. They are not signs to be decoded like puzzles. They are presences to be lived with. When a symbol appears to you, especially one that persists, it is calling you into a process, not a conclusion. It is asking for a relationship, not an explanation. And like any sacred relationship, it requires patience, curiosity, and reverence. Some will feel the urge to share their sacred symbols in search of confirmation. But no external voice can truly validate what belongs to the soul. The moment a symbol is handed to the collective mind, it begins to dissolve into generality. Its edges blur, its personal charge weakens, and eventually it may no longer feel like yours. Let your symbols remain private while they are still forming. Protect their mystery, sketch them, speak to them. Listen, let them evolve without needing to perform. A symbol that has lived long enough within you will begin to shape your life from the inside out. It will lead to choices, relationships, paths, and patterns that make no sense to the rational mind, but feel unmistakably aligned. Then, and only then, might it be time to share, not as explanation, but as testament. But even then, know this, not every sacred thing is meant to be spoken aloud. Some symbols are not for others to see. They are there to guide you, to keep you tethered to the deep, to remind you that beneath the surface of the seen world, another world is dreaming through you, of course. Here is a fully expanded version of your inner truths not yet lived, written in a contemplative, symbolic, and psychologically rich tone. Without a heading, there are truths that rise quietly within us, not as facts to be debated, but as undeniable recognitions. They don't arrive through argument or logic, but through stillness, through suffering, through long contemplation. They are the truths that make something in you pause and whisper, "This is real, this is mine." But often, these truths are not yet reflected in the way we live. They remain within us like seeds that know what they are, even before they break open. To carry an inner truth you have not yet lived is to hold a kind of sacred tension. You know something deeply, but that knowing has not yet passed through the fires of action, choice, or embodiment. It lives in the realm of potential, waiting for you to become large enough to hold it. And this in-between place, between awareness and embodiment, is delicate. It is easy to mistake the clarity of the insight for the completion of the journey. When we speak of these inner truths too soon, before they have been forged into lived experience, we risk turning insight into performance. We begin to speak words we haven't earned, to declare convictions that haven't yet reshaped our behavior. And though our intentions may be sincere, the world feels the dissonance between what is said and what is lived. In that space, even the truest insight can sound hollow. There is something in us that longs to announce our revelations, to be seen as wise, evolved, conscious. But inner truths are not decorations for the self-image. They are not to be worn as badges or posted as affirmations. They are to be lived quietly, steadily, sometimes painfully. To know something is sacred is one step, to become it is another. The latter is far harder and far more real. The danger in sharing truths too early is not only in being misunderstood, but in weakening their power. Once a truth is spoken aloud, it enters the world of interpretation. Others may try to shape it for you, name it, challenge it, or explain it away. And if you are not yet rooted in your own lived understanding, you may begin to doubt what you once knew with certainty. The outer voices can drown out the inner one. Let your truth ripen in silence. Let it shape your habits, your reactions, your relationships. Let it disrupt you. Let it demand new patterns, deeper honesty, and greater responsibility. Allow it to unravel what no longer serves you. That is how truth becomes flesh, through labor, not proclamation. And when your life has bent itself around that truth, when your choices align with what you know in your bones, then you will not need to speak of it. People will feel it in your presence. The lived truth is not something you tell, it is something you are. And in that state, your silence will carry more weight than 1,000 declarations. There are truths in you now waiting, not for applause, but for action, not for sharing, but for shaping. Trust that what is truly yours will remain. Trust that what must be said will one day be said, not because you need to speak it, but because you have become it. In closing, know this: the soul is not a marketplace, it is a temple. Some things are meant to be whispered only to the self, or perhaps never spoken at all. What is hidden is not always secret, it is often sacred. Thank you.